Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. I hope your week is going great. Today, Nelly and I, we are on another amazing episode. And the topic today, we're talking about managing parental conflict without involving the child. And it's very, very important. So, anyway, without further ado, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Peggy Barry. For people who don't know me, I'm Peggy Barre, the founder of Arise and Thrive Academy, domestic abuse practitioner. I'll pass you to Nelly to introduce herself and then we can roll.
Hello, everyone. I am Nelly Kwasungwi, a social worker, transformational life coach, and co-director of Hand in Hand Community CIC. It's always a pleasure to be on these sessions, and today is a very crucial topic. Peggy has already said the topic, which is managing parental conflict without involving the children.
Absolutely. And we thought it wise that we have to talk about this because I've heard it so many times. And even myself, I used to feel that way. Where you live in a house and you feel like, okay, there is the house, there are walls, there are doors, there are windows, everything, nothing is happening. Even if we quarrel, even if we fight, so long as the children are in their room, they're not hearing anything. But I came to realize that even when no word is said, energy speaks a lot and it affects our children a lot. So today it will be nice to, and one of the things is that most of the time parents do not actually understand the impact of conflict on their children. So it is very important that we are aware of it and then at least we can be conscious of how we're dealing with conflict. Because whether we like it or not, conflict will always happen because, hey, we are humans. We will disagree. But the key is how do we go through that disagreement without us hurting the children? So, Nelly, I don't know if you've got some statistics at your end, and then we can just go straight into discussing the impact of conflict on our children.
Yeah, just before I go to the information, I just want to say you said something at the very beginning, and this is something that as a social worker now I'm putting on the social worker hat. So, in cases of domestic abuse or parental conflict, most of the times when you speak with parents, parents were like, no, we had a fight or we had the argument, whatever it is. But the children were in their bedroom, the children were playing in the garden, the children were not in the room. And most parents think that the children are not affected. But that's not the case. So if there's a domestic incident, and even whether it's the police or social services that get involved, they will ask, who were those in the property? When getting the information, they find out that a child was in the address at the time of the argument. That's already a referral to children's services. But then speaking to parents, they don't understand. And like you said, yes, energy children feel. And imagine if, say, the arguments are frequent. First, the child develops uncertainty because the children never understand the root cause of the argument. They don't know when an argument will start. They don't know when it will stop. So they're always on urge that something might happen, something might happen. The children might never say it, but they feel it. And that's something that parents need to be very, very aware and to know that when they have conflict, it affects the children. Even if they don't talk about even if the parents don't talk about the conflict with the children or with the children being involved, the children sense it because probably the parent used to say sit together and just have a chat, but then a child might notice that they are not speaking to each other. That's already something to them. They might not understand, but it worries them. So we need to be very, very mindful. It doesn't mean that conflict doesn't happen. conflict happens, but it's how we deal with the conflict, and particularly without involving the children. Though, unfortunately, sometimes parents use the children to settle scores with the other parent, which is very, very damaging. So, for the impact, the research I've got here is in the UK, around one in 8 children in couple parent families there's at least one parent experiencing relationship distress, and 1 in 8 are exposed to parental conflict in one way or the other. Then in the African community, no, so the research further says that the frequency, intensity, or really reveals the impact that it can have on the parent, because on the child, sorry. Because if it's just a one-off argument that the child has heard, it might unsettle the child, but it will be the impact will be different from when it is like a normal everyday or frequently once a week that occurs. Because when social services or the police get involved, they will ask, how often are the arguments? So that also has a significant contribution on the impact of the child. It was just a scanty information, so not much. That's all.
Yeah, but that is right. And that just goes to shows that at least, it's very important when you're talking about the key here is that for fact there'll be disagreement, because like we say, we're human beings, right? We know two partners are never gonna agree all the time. And there'll be disagreement, and sometimes disagreement will lead to quarrel or conflict. But like you say, if it's not even the presence of the conflict, it's how you manage it. And we are talking here about, so if we want to start talking about the effects that it has on children, because this is where many parents, for one, Nelly, I used to say, you know what, I've never ever argued in front of my children. I will always, like, I don't argue in front of my children, but I forgot to understand that the number of times that we used to go on silent, where you cold war when nobody is talking to each other. And in my little head, I thought that the children were not aware of it, but they were aware of it. You know that moment where you're talking with them, you're laughing, you're chatting, and then immediately the other partner walks in, you just go mute. And the children used to wonder, why is it that you keep quiet? Why is it that you don't talk? Maybe when dad is around, or why does dad doesn't talk when mom is around? And these are some of the questions that actually box them. They may not open up. And if they don't get the answers to this question, can you imagine what is going in their head? So we're going to be talking. These are some of the things that most parents are not aware of. We feel like, you know what, okay, we're not quarreling in front of them, we're hiding things in front of them, we're not banging, we're not shouting, we are not. But again, the environment is tense and the energy is playing a lot in the children. So we are going to be talking about the first thing, I think, on our list. We're talking about the impact, understanding the impact of parental conflict on children, which of course the first that we've got is the emotional and psychological effect. As we said, I think statistics, I did not write the statistic, but it talked about how children are being impacted even when they're still in the womb. When they're still
Yeah.
in the womb, the constant shouting. If a mom is pregnant with a child, and if there's constant screaming, banging, shouting, and even if the mom that is carrying that baby, if that mom is constantly crying and sobbing and under stress, statistics shows that it starts to affect that unborn child. And then when that child is born into that environment, if it continues, then of course it starts to shape the it starts to shape that child, the way they grow. It starts to affect them emotionally, it starts to affect them psychologically. And as we know, when these things, when a child is not developed psychologically healthy, the child is not psychologically healthy when they're developed, of course we know that it begins to affect other part of that child. So I don't know whether, Nelly, you want to add something on that.
Yeah. So we start acknowledging when children are born and when they start understanding. But like Peggy said, it is from the womb.
Yeah.
So as children are born, where we can see the children, they start developing their mental representations. If they hear parents loud noises, they might not know what the loud noises are, but they might feel scared, and they would associate loud noises with fear. And if that continues, already that's a mental representation that they have developed. And if, imagine that continues, say, for the child will not know, they say whether it's once a week or once a month, but to the child, they'll just be expecting because they don't know when they'll hear that big bang. And then the child will just, hyper vigilant, just be watching out because they don't even understand at their ages.
Yeah.
And when children are affected psychologically, say they go to school, they struggle to concentrate while in school because physically they are in school, but mentally, emotionally, they are back at home thinking what is going on at home. If they get home, will the parents still be there? Because they don't know what is going to happen. And just recently, this one, I want to just share an example, so probably it will make a lot more sense. So recently, I was speaking to someone who was talking about them really struggling to relate with others. And as I was exploring, I told them, I said, I asked questions about how they felt growing up, how was their relationship with their father, their mother, their siblings. And he just looked at me like that, staring at me. And I was like, it's okay, giving that reassurance. And it so happened from what he said, he has never opened up to talk about it. So he said, growing up, there were just two things in their household that they could do, either reading or sleeping. Those
Oh.
were the two things. So because he was talking for himself, he developed the attitude that if the parent is coming home, he would either force himself to be sleeping or pretend to be sleeping, or he'll get a book and be reading. Because
Wow.
if his father saw any of his children just sat there, even relaxing, he will say they're being lazy. So for all his childhood and till now, he doesn't know how to relax because he has never ever had that experience. And at the back of his head, he knows that if he is relaxing, it means that he is being lazy because he hears the father's voice. So that self-talk. So as I was having the conversation with him, he revealed that it got to a stage where he did not know what was going on at home, in the sense that he feels till now that his parents never understood him. He never related to his parents, and he never had that sibling relationship with his sisters. So he went to uni. But at uni, it was different because that was the first time he had the opportunity to do things that he wanted, because it's so sad because he did not know the things that he enjoyed doing as a child because he never had any. He was
Mm.
never allowed to play as a child.
Mm.
So as we were speaking, he said honestly, he doesn't know what he really likes doing because for him it was either reading or sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the impact. We know that children explore. This might seem as if I'm just taking it out of context, but just bear with me, I'm coming.
Yeah.
So he said down the line, when he was at uni, he came home and asked about his dad from his mom. And his mom said, he's not there. And he was like, oh, night came. His dad didn't return. So he said he had never ever seen his parents argue. So when he asked his mom that it's been a number of days, that has not come back, what is going on? And his mom said, Dad just carried his bag and left.
Mm.
So he was like, no closure. He was really, really upset because imagine these are the parents or his father used to be very strict, focus on education or religion. And religion, it was not a choice, it was with education and religion. So
Mm-hmm.
he's never seen them argue. But then out of a sudden, he's gone. Gone to where? What happened? So imagine he had never been so close to the parents, and then this happened. He has 101 questions. So this is why I was bringing this experience or this story, because sometimes parents don't want to argue. They give the
Yeah.
silent treatment, but then the impact on the child because the child disconnected. And imagine. So I was telling him, I say yes. Now you are disconnected with your emotions, your family, those that
Mm-hmm.
are close to you. But if in your relationship now, that might be coming up now and again.
Yeah.
And he said there was a time that recently his one of the sisters rang him to say that his mom is not well. And the sister asked, what are you feeling at that time? And he said nothing. The sister said, you are emotionally detached.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, I agree with the sister. You are
Yeah.
emotionally detached. And I said, this is how now in your relationship, because you have a girlfriend who is so close to you, all
Mm.
those your detachment will start coming up. I said, because sometimes you want to get intimate with her, like just being open, not just open, talking about things, intimacy means different things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you get like you want to open up to talk to her, that silent voice might just come that you just want to disconnect with her.
Yeah.
And he was just looking at me like that. And as so these are just some of the impacts
Yeah.
when it comes to parental conflict, because sometimes parents choose to give the silent treatment. Parents choose not to deal with the issue, but then
Mm-hmm.
it shows up. Whereas some other parents, they just fight in front of the children and say all sorts of things. So those are some of the impacts that it can exhibit in a child. So this is just one in so many examples.
And to honestly, thanks for sharing that, because by you sharing that, I can already see the number of list of impact that it can impact a child. And one of the things that you were talking, and I'm just in my head thinking, Nelly, the fact is that parents do not actually, sometimes, even if parents want to acknowledge the fact that quarreling in front of the child, or fighting in front of the child, or giving that silent treatment in front of the child, most parents might just be looking at the immediate impact. They forget to look at the long-term impact. That child is leaving the house with bucket list of questions, unanswered questions, and with emotions that they've not been able to deal with. And then they're leaving the house into the world with thousands and thousands of different answers that they may not even know how to figure things out.
Yeah.
So it can be very, very damaging. And we've talked about the emotional and psychological effects. Statistics also shows that it is the high rate of anxiety, things like anxiety, sadness, and even behavioral issues, like even bedwetting. I did not know that bedwetting is linked to child trauma. I did not know. And I, for once, Nelly, let me say this in front of the camera, and I'm sure the public will be hearing, listening to me. I bedwet for so many years, Nelly, even into my secondary school. I was bedwetting until I was scared. At one time, my grandma used to be scared that I was going to get married and be bedwetting in my husband's house. And I used to feel like, what was the problem? What is it? But if I look at now, looking at the impact, then yes, I can agree, really 100% agree that child trauma can lead to bedwetting, And these are some of the things that children will be exhibiting, some of these physical symptoms, and we are beating the children. We are actually beating them that, no, why did you bedwet? But without actually looking at the underlying cause of that bedwetting, and even looking at the underlying cause of what we're doing to that is impacting that child. So it is very, very important as parents that from the time that you carry that child in your womb, it is your responsibility to protect that child, emotional, psychological, physical, mental, everything about that child's well-being. And so that is why we as parents need to be very, very cautious when we're having that, how to deal, when we need to know how to deal with that disagreement. Another effect was we're looking at the impact on their brain and stress symptom, which we've already talked about, because ongoing exposure to high conflict, it can activate the child stress response system repeatedly. Every time, if the child is hearing screaming, banging, all of that, even though as young as they are, it begins to activate that stress system in their head, and over the time, they will actually relate to, in fact, it will lead to toxic stress, and it will lead to even the point where the children begin to even, it will be affect even their development as children, and even affect even their development in school and all of that. So these are some of the things that, again, you see a child maybe struggling in their early age in school. Maybe sometimes we as parents need to ask a lot of questions that, what is it, what role is it am I playing at home that is actually affecting this child? So these are some of the things that we should not be thinking only about myself and the partner, or that partner no, it's about that child. So I don't know whether, Nelly, we should just be in the next one on your point, if you've got another effect on your list, because the next
Um,
I've got is effect on relationship and social development.
yeah. You want me to talk about that because I've got
Yeah,
on my list as well.
yeah.
So, social development. Okay. If children are not able to relate with themselves, their immediate, those within their immediate surrounding, like their parents, their siblings, they
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to build a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And they will be focusing on what they want at the time, because the short term, because that's what they've learned from their parents. And when they get into, say, their sibling, when they get in with their peers, whether it's in school, it's in the community, wherever, they will struggle, especially if there is a conflict, if they
Mm-hmm.
experience a conflict. They haven't develop the problem solving skills from their parents, because the parents just argue or they fight, they use a silent treatment, or they just argue and they don't resolve the issue. The child develops the same thing. And
Mm.
when they get into a situation with their peers where they don't have things the way they want or their way, then they
Mm-hmm.
will obviously, that's their default. They'll use similar ways that they have observed from their parents to resolve the conflict. And
Mm-hmm.
that might destroy the relationship with their friends. And that will continue till whenever they develop the problem solving skills. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking, a lot of the times, like in social services, we talk about healthy relationships. We teach
Mm-hmm.
children healthy relationships, but then the children are getting this support for healthy relationship, but then they go back at home and the parents are still there with their ways of dealing with the conflict.
Mm.
Parents, you said something before that parents need to understand where that trauma is coming from. If we want to go back, the word trauma, this is just a new word, I would say, that is coming
Yeah.
up, which a lot of those from our community, the Afro-Caribbean communities, we don't know what is trauma. We just know
Mm-hmm.
it's our life experiences. So with my role, I as a transformational life coach, the kind of conversations that I have, whether with, I mean, adults, even children, it
Mm-hmm.
goes to the same thing, which is down to trauma. But because in our community, we don't know what is trauma, because we assume, or not assume, we know that from when we were born into suffering.
Mm.
And we will just continue just struggling and struggling and struggling in life. So then we don't even think of looking at the root cause.
Yeah.
Like when you were sharing your experience, Peggy, of bedwetting, I just had like flashback of I had a younger cousin who was bedwetting as well up till high school.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm now thinking the punishment that was being given to her. Me too, I contributed in the punishment because I thought that was just the way, because we couldn't understand. We couldn't understand because sometimes we just concluded that she was doing it on purpose.
Mm.
But it's then when I came and I was getting into this trauma and mental health, emotional well-being, that I started reflecting that this child was really struggling.
Yeah.
But then we were adding onto the trauma that she was experiencing, because in the morning, we would sometimes, when in the morning, when she gets up, she had to bathe with cold water from the drum. Imagine how cold that water is.
Mm.
Because at the time we were made to believe that if she showered with that, she will learn that if she feels as to be, she will get out of bed. But looking at it, that was just punishment. That was
Mm-hmm.
just punishment, and it did not help. And that's something that I feel as parents, we need to start learning, because there are lots of things that are coming to light that a majority of Afro-Caribbean, not only Afro-Caribbean parents, majority of people do not know.
Yeah.
People are getting aware of that because they, especially those who are interested in psychology or psychology related courses or trainings, that they become used to, because trauma informed is psychology based.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like what I say about psychology is, I believe that everyone on this planet needs to study psychology,
Yeah.
because you understand a lot of things. I know, I'm
Yeah.
sure I've just gone far and above.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sometimes I
Yeah.
just go, especially when it's something that I'm passionate about, I just go and I go. Let me stop there for now, Peggy.
Yeah, and it makes sense, Nelly. It makes sense because what is psychology? Psychology is just study of human behavior. We are
Yeah.
human beings. We've got our children. What are we going to be without people, without children, without parents, without siblings? Even with our own self. Even if you don't want to understand how somebody else behave, you at least want to understand why you think, talk, behave, act the way you do. That is very, very important. So we're talking about even that the effect on relationship and social development. So we talk about, again, like you say, children will grow up to struggle with communications. You ask children, sometimes children who do not see their parents communicate healthy and giving that silent treatment, you expect that child will grow up not being able to express themselves because they feel like maybe by me expressing themselves there's something wrong with it. I've never seen mom and dad have a cordial relationship and communicate well. So where do I learn it? And this is why when they go out there, they learn from what the society is teaching them. Why? Because parents at home are not confident or courageous or peaceful enough to communicate. And then we talk about developing aggressive or passive conflicting style, which you've already mentioned, because they begin to mimic from what we're doing, Nelly. If every time you as a parent wants to solve a problem is by screaming and banging and shouting, and that is the same thing that you're telling your child that it is okay to do like that. And then we talk about difficulty forming secure relationship later on in life, just like the story that you shared, Nelly. That guy, that gentleman, you see that, yes, bless him, he's gotten into a relationship, he's got a girlfriend. But just begin to imagine how difficult that relationship is going to be, because he has not learned, or he did not learn through the parents how to actually form a healthy relationship. So these are some of the things that, yes, we've dealt with it in our life. Maybe the marriage has gone apart, right? But we've left that child with burden on their head to carry, which is not fair on them. So honestly, having this conversation again, it just makes you kind of really, you need to really wake up to the things that you do sometime as a parent, because you don't know the baggage that you're already building for that child, and that child is going to take that baggage with them wherever they go. And as a parent, I really don't want to be feeling bad because maybe I did not teach my child some healthy skills that they could take from home. So again, it's about just being alert that as parents we really need to be mindful of these things. And then another one, we talk about sense of safety and attachment, which I think it kind of linked to that story that you shared, Nelly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think just to add there, so sometimes parents want to protect their child from the parents' own perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So the parents will portray their insecurities onto the child, and the
Yeah.
parent will become overprotective, which is not healthy. Yes, they're protecting the child, but they are overprotecting the child, which is not good because children, yes, let's promote children's independence. Let them take risks because children are inquisitive. Give them the space, the safe space to explore.
Mm-hmm.
But then when parents, from their insecurity, they want to overprotect the child, they focus on the short run because they are doing everything for the child and the child is obedient, the child is doing what parents want them to do, but they are not
Mm-hmm.
developing life skills. In the future, the children will be the ones to struggle because
Mm-hmm.
they've not had that experience, they've not developed those skills. But then, on the other hand, some parents do not first, not again, just with the insecure parents, they have
Mm-hmm.
their own struggles and they are unable to manage their own struggles. So imagine as a parent, you are not able to manage your own emotional difficulties, and then you want to manage or you want to help your child to manage theirs. It's just chaos plus chaos equals to I don't know what that can be. And I think something that Peggy and myself, I think almost on all our sessions, we talk about parents. Take a step back and start learning, because what Peggy and myself come on these sessions and share is not something that we're born with. We keep on learning because we want our children, we want to provide the best for our children. Yes, we have made mistakes, but mistakes provide us with learning opportunities. Take advantage of those learning opportunities to improve on yourself and that of your children. So then when we start like respecting ourselves, our
Mhm,
children will also see, and it will help them to form that relationship, that bond with ourselves, that's our
mhm.
children, with our children. And then the children will go on to modify the way they build their own relationships too.
Absolutely. That is so true. That is really so true. And this is where we talk, there was the topic that we talk about conscious parenting. For anybody who is listening, if you would want to go back and watch that video, conscious parenting, you will learn a lot from there because, again, sometimes we parent blindly. We parent for parenting's sake. Like we don't even know what is it that it entails to be really good parent and parent with mindfulness. So it's very important. Before we continue, we just want to give a shout out to, is it Emma V? And I think Gemma as well, Gemma Hallis. So thank you so much for joining and thank you for listening. And if you got any question or your contribution, you can pop it there in the chat, in the comment section. I think I can see it. So I think we're going to be talking. We're going to go to the next thing on our list, which talk about how to manage conflict effectively. And I thought wise that we may want to talk about some myth. In fact, we're going to be discussing some myth and then addressing how we could deal with conflict in the right way. So on my list, I've got myth number one, which says good parents never argue in front of their kids, because that is some myth that you hear. Oh, these parents, especially when I was growing up, those wealthy parents, the ones that would drive past in a car, the ones that when you go in their house is shiny, everything looks perfect. And we used to think that, oh no, there's no problem in that house. Everything is just nice. And that is a myth that we carry, that good parents never argue in front of, or wealthy parents never argue in front of their children. But the reality is that it is not the presence of the conflict that matters, it's how we handle it that matters. Like we say, we are all human beings, we have different views. We may not like something, we may disagree, right? It is okay. But how do we manage that disagreement? Because when we manage the disagreement in the right manner, we are actually teaching that child how to problem solve. We are teaching them how to problem solve. We are teaching them that it's okay to disagree. But how do you disagree? You need to disagree in the right way, with the right attitude, with the right emotions. So that is number one myth that is debunked.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, let me just add to that. Sometimes you
Mhm.
speak to parents and they say all our arguments or all our issues, we sort them out in the bedroom. But then
Mm,
it doesn't start in the bedroom and it doesn't
yes,
end in the bedroom. So going back, where does it start? For instance, it might start with the children being around. But
yeah,
then how do you handle it at that time? Because this is what we are talking about, that how do you handle it? Because now we want our children to start learning things. It could be that you have differing ideas. You talk about yours, the other person talks about theirs, and you realize that you are talking different things. This is where you need to be intentional. And if one person is intentional and the other person is not intentional, there'll be trouble. So it's the two
definitely.
parents need to be intentional. Whether the children are there or the children are not there, once it starts, you being intentional, you can acknowledge that, oh, we have different ideas and we need to talk about this, but then we can talk about it another time. That
Yeah.
is a classic way the children will realize that, oh, mom and dad have had a different opinions, but they
Yes.
have sorted it out, because in the child's eyes, they will know that the communication is ongoing. And
Yes.
for intentional parents, they will talk about that and leave it to the side, and then they continue. But all of this is parents need to be learning the skills that we've just talked about, because some parents want to be, I am the winner. And then they just want to keep going, keep going, keep going. And then the children are there just looking, just not the parents not even realizing the impact that
Yeah.
that conflict is having on the children.
Absolutely. And like we always say, Nelly, it is not what we say that matter, is how we say it. And that is
Exactly.
very key. That is
Yeah.
very key.
Yeah.
And myth number two, it talks about children are too young to notice conflict. And we've talked about it. That is a fat
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah.
In as young, we've talked about even very young children pick up on tones, they pick up tension, and they pick up body language. And they
Yeah.
may not understand, even though they may not understand the details, but they feel the stress, and that can actually internalize, they can actually internalize that stress.
Yeah.
So that is again myth. So yeah, Nelly, I don't know whether you have some on your list there, and then I'll say the fourth one. It may not
So it's
necessarily be
just
a, yeah.
it's just linking to calm communication, which I think it ties in with the point that I've just made. Calm
Mm,
communication. If there is a disagreement, it's okay to disagree, but then
yeah.
how do you communicate that? Just communicate it calmly. It doesn't mean that you like put plaster over, how do you say that? Like just patch it. No, just you don't need to force yourself to say things that doesn't align with you just because you want. No, when you make it a habit, it will just become part and parcel of you. If you
Yes.
want, I mean, being intentional, we have said this so many times. We need to be
Mhm.
intentional, because when you are intentional, you will start thinking of, am I hurting this person? Am I hurting the child? What is the impact? You'll keep thinking of the impact. And again, yourself, because we are not talking here about people pleasing. Because
Yeah.
if you develop that habit of people pleasing, you are destroying your own self. But on the other hand, is that sometimes your opinion doesn't count. It doesn't mean that when you have something, you have to say it. Ask yourself, is that what is that going to do? Is it going to hurt someone? Is it going to help? And things like that. Those are all aspects of you being intentional. So always make sure that your communication is calm, it is effective. If you ask yourself, is whatever you are going to say at that time necessary? And you feel that it is not, then stop. Don't say it, because
Mm,
sometimes people want to say things to get the validation or to show that, yes, I've proven a point. But always ask yourself, is that necessary at that particular time? If it's a no, then don't say it. Probably
yeah.
it will be appropriate to say that same thing at a different time, and probably it might be when the children are not there, when you're
Yeah.
having the calm conversation in your bedroom. That might come at the time.
Absolutely. And another one we've talked about, if we hide argument, we are protecting our children, which again is a fat lie. As we've said, constantly suppressing or hiding conflict, it can create a confusing environment. And the children may sometimes they may sense something is wrong, but if they have no explanation, that may actually go ahead to create anxiety, and that may start leading them to blaming themselves. And I've seen this, I saw this with my first son. Like I say, the issue that we were going through, my first son took the blame. He was blaming himself, especially when we came out of the environment. He used to say that maybe he was the cause of the relationship breaking down, but again, because we were not explaining things to them. And I understand that sometimes, honestly, children do not need to children do not need to know certain type of things, especially if they're very young. But then it is also okay to disclose age appropriate information to our children. It is okay, because if a child comes in and they notice that, hey, mommy and dad or dad and mom are not talking, or maybe something is happening which is unusual, rather than leave that child in suspense or leave them in the dark, it is okay to even tell that child that, hey, dad and I, or mom and I, has got some disagreement, but don't worry, we're going to sort it out. We're going to resolve it. Don't worry. We don't worry. Because that is just at least reassuring that child that, okay, they can understand why there is a little bit of tension, but you've also reassured them that it's going to be soft, right? Rather than leave them in the dark. And so we've talked about, so another myth that we need to talk about is, as long as we don't involve the child, it won't affect them. Again, that is a fat myth, it's a fat lie. Nelly and I have said, children don't have to be directly involved, to be affected. We've talked about even the overhearing of argument, energy itself speaks, you know, and witnessing that cold silence, that cold shoulder, that cold treatment that you're giving the other party. The children are actually listening to them, and the children are actually hearing those things, and they're feeling those things, and it may affect them. So again, we talked about how do you, and if you are a parent that you're really watching your children struggling with that type of struggling in the house with their emotions, and maybe they're not understanding what is happening, why can't you as a parent just try to clear the air with the person that is involved? Because I know there's sometimes that you feel like, okay, I'm not going to talk to that person. That person will have to kind of be the one to resolve the thing. That person was the one that started it, so he or she is going to be the one to resolve it. But so long as you keep drawing and pulling and waiting for the other person to come and sort that problem, and you're seeing the impact that is impacting your children, why can't you just break the ice and say, hey, come on, we need to talk about this thing now? We need to resolve this thing now. We've got our differences. I understand we've got our differences, but let us be bold and talk about the differences so that we iron out things for the sake of peace and for the sake of our children. So sometimes it's very okay to come outwardly and say, you know what, both of you are intentional about resolving the issue. So Nelly, I don't know whether I've got some on your list.
Yeah, I've got community and no. Yeah, strong emphasis on family unity and collective identity.
Mm,
This is, I mean, we say that community brings up a child.
yes.
A child does not belong only to the parent.
Mm-hmm.
But again, children will learn certain things from their community.
Mm-hmm.
But home is different, because
Yes.
regardless of the disunity, the disagreements that are outside, if at home the child knows that the home is a safe space,
Mm-hmm.
they will they must have developed those skills. Like we've talked about the problem solving, they might have
Mm-hmm.
developed those problem solving skills from home, and then
Yeah.
out there they might be the ones like being the peacemaker or resolving issues from a very young age. So
Mm-hmm.
those sometimes, if at home, okay, let's say if it's the opposite, if
Yeah.
instead this child gets like the support from the community, but not at
Yeah.
home, it will
Yeah.
significantly impact the child. And this will be the situation where the child will want to go out of the house because they know that at home anything can happen. And this point, I think, is important because sometimes it's easier for the child to go to the community because they've got auntie A, uncle this, brother, sister, this is easy to deal with. But then when they come back home, the parents have not developed that skill or the skills to manage with the good skills that this child has learned from out there. So what
Mm-hmm.
happens? The child forgets because they want to be in that protective mode. They want to protect themselves. So all what they have learned from outside, it will just disappear. And we
Mm.
need to be thinking about safety issues outside as well. So if a
Yes.
child tells us that they don't feel comfortable with something, we need to be listening as well and not just say, oh, that is the child gone, one problem out of my hands and things like that. It's just like when we send children to school, we're like, phew, I have a few hours to be by myself. One trouble gone. I mean, just imagine that kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
we need to start practicing problem solving. I mean, wherever you are in your life, wherever, start with yourself, because
Yeah.
we know in our community we don't talk about emotions, but we know that we feel a certain way. Sometimes we don't even want to. We just feel that, or we think that there are physical symptoms, whereas
Yeah.
there are emotional symptoms that are manifesting in physical symptoms. So we need
Absolutely.
to learn about it so we can help ourselves and help our children too.
Absolutely. So I just want to read a comment that Emma V said, parents' perspective, say it's what I know to do as I learn from my own parents. Yeah. And she says, I use conflict moment as a teachable period for my children, which is absolutely right. And that
Yeah.
is just to say, no, you know what? There will always be conflict, but use it as a teachable, use it as an opportunity to teach your children how to deal with conflict. Because guess what? They are going to go out there, they're going to form their own relationships. How are they going to deal with conflict when it arises? So these are very important. Rather than take it to set a score or take it as I am the one that won, there's it's not going to teach that child. Because I know some parents want to make sure that I'm the one that won that fight, I won the argument. But if you want, maybe you may have won that argument, but how damaging has it caused? What is the damage that is caused on your children? So that is what we need to be asking ourselves. And we talked about apologizing in front of children undermines authority. Some parents, again, look, like I said, we're not perfect. We're all imperfect beings. There are times that even both parents will mess up, and it's okay to apologize, because apologizing, even when your children are there, you're teaching your children that to err is to make mistake is okay, but to apologize is a form of strength as well. So we're teaching our children to be accountable, to take responsibility for their actions. So that is again a lesson that we're teaching them. And you've heard again about the one which says it's better to stay together no matter what for the sake of the kids. Now, this is a big one for me. Speaking as a domestic abuse practitioner, this is one of the reasons that leave parents fighting parents to stay in a relationship. That we are staying there for the best interest of the kids. No, you're not staying there for the best interest of the kid. You are actually staying there to damage the children. Because if you know that that environment is not healthy, it's not conducive, then you're suppressing that, I just want to stay in that relationship for the sake of the children, then you are actually damaging the children. It's rather, if you know that it's not working and that you've tried, you've sought the help and the support that you need to no avail, for you to protect your children and protect your own self, is rather to say, you know what, kind of step out. It's okay to step out and then look at, if the environment is not safe, then it's okay, to take the children out, or for those children to leave that environment for their own safety. So it's very, very important, because this is one of the things that I hear, especially from most parents. Me too, I would say statistics show that majority of people stay in a relationship. If you ask them, they'll say they stay there for the sake of the children. But it's ironic. If we want to look at the impact that it actually cost on the children, it is
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really true. And there, Peggy, community has a massive role to play in that.
Yeah.
Because, like they say, once you are married, you remain married.
Hmm.
But just think of it, marriage is meant to be between two people, and then
Mhm.
children come after. But then when that marriage is not, or when the relationship is not going to
Mhm.
plan, and then you even want to seek help from the community, which was my case, I felt rejected.
Yeah.
And if you've gathered that courage to seek for help from the community, and they tell you, I mean, they tell you whatever they say, but then they are in favor of the marriage. But then you are in that relationship, you are in that household. You know the impact on yourself, you know the impact on your child or children, and then you are seeking help from your community and they just want you to go back. Then that is a massive point where you need to realize that your decision is in your hands. I know we've talked about cases where parents, because of the fear of starting over, they just want to, okay, I'll just persevere. And then
Mm.
all the abuse, all they treat you like a doormat. And
Yeah.
then it gets to the point where you know fully well that the behavior is not acceptable, but you again say, for the sake of the children. And as you're saying that for the sake of the children are observing. Children are very, very observant and they
Yeah.
notice a lot of things because if they see something once, they see it twice, the third time, they'll be like, no, 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 no. They might not even say it to the parent because you know there's that aspect of respect. They might not
Yeah.
say it to the parent, but in their head, they'll be thinking that they've noticed something that is not normal. So instead of saying that, we are not here saying that leave your marriages. No, no. Seek help, seek the
Yeah.
support you need. But then, what is the impact on the children? Because children are very sensitive, and
Yeah.
because of their limited life experiences, they tend to blame themselves that the relationship broke down because of themselves. Because what Peggy has experienced is the same thing that I've experienced, where my children were like, they were the cause of the relationship breakdown, which is not. So for the child to come say that, we don't know how far that has affected the child. So to me, if you want to stay, don't use the children as an excuse, because you are openly damaging the same children that you are claiming that you want to protect. It might be hard, which is really hard to make that decision because
Yeah.
it's a life changing decision. And just knowing that if you make that decision, you might have to start everything by yourself. But again, it's going down to that, how do you solve that conflict? Because yes,
Yeah.
conflict, you cannot avoid conflict, but when it comes, how do you solve it? Sometimes we start, we don't put boundaries, or when we put boundaries, we start being, oh, it's just a one off, oh, it's just a two off, oh, and then eventually you realize that, oh, it's just a 10 off, oh, it's just a 20 off. So when would you start putting that boundary to stick to it, for you to realize that that is not acceptable because it's affecting you, it's affecting the children. It doesn't mean that you need to be a dictator to say that things must be done this way.
Yeah.
Have some flexibility, but know the things that are non-negotiable, and especially anything that affects your well-being, it's a no-no. If you can't
Yeah.
sleep at night thinking and hovering over conversations or acts and things like that, then it's not good, because that's just a gentle way that anxiety creeps in, soon depression comes in, soon other mental health issues come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I just wanted to pick to say is that it doesn't, it is a good practice if both parents can actually set aside a rule regarding disagreement where they can both agree that no matter the disagreement between them two, they will need to resolve it peacefully, calmly, for the sake or the health and well-being of the children. Because that is an agreement that both partners can have, so that whenever you're having your disagreement, you know at the back of your mind that we did agree that this is the rule. This is the rule of engagement, that no matter our disagreement, no matter how angry you are or how angry I am, we are going to resolve it peacefully, calmly, for the sake of the children, the health and well-being of the children. So if we put the safety of the children first, then of course that would take priority over our own egoistic, selfish reason that we want to achieve. It's not going to be about I am the one that won the argument. No, it's going to be that that argument has been resolved peacefully for the sake of the children. And there's one thing that I just wanted to say then before we just quickly jump onto the last bit. I know we're running out of time. There was one time, Nelly, when this whole thing was happening. Again, like we say, as parents, sometimes we don't understand, we underestimate the impact that children are going through. My daughter at the time, she had a diary, and that diary had a lock and a key. Every time she will write in that diary, and then she will lock the diary and she will hide the key. But there was on this fateful day, she went to school and then she forgot that diary. In fact, she forgot it open. And when I picked that diary and I read it, Nelly, I wept. The amount of things that that child was writing, the information that was in that diary, I was like, how come this child at this age, this very young age, everything she was detailing, everything she was writing, it felt as if that diary was she was speaking to her diary. Like every time she had this unanswered question, she would go and write it in that diary. And then she would even ask the question in the diary. So that really, that's one of the things that it got to me, and I say, you know what? No, 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 I can't anymore, because you know what? You could see that that child was heading towards the wrong direction in terms of their mental health. So this is why we now come to the last step, which is about exploring strategies to protect our children's emotional well-being. Like we say, yes, maybe we are talking now, maybe there have been argument at home, you've been arguing with your partner, or maybe conflict has not been dealt with in the right way, and maybe it's been affecting children. Now, how do we actually make sure that we protect their emotional well-being? So on my list, the first thing is to create emotional safety at home. That is the first thing. So this is where you can intentionally, or you or your partner, or you yourself can intentionally say, you know what? Yes, I acknowledge that things have been going wrong. I've been dealing with things in the wrong way. It's been affecting our children. Now, how do we clear the mess? How do we solve it? The first thing is to create an emotional safety at home. And we've talked so many times about emotional safety, creating that conducive environment. Nelly and I will explore a lot on that, where you make sure that your children, you create an environment where, yes, there's communication, yes, there is accepting of responsibility, there's accountability. You can actually put your hand up and say, hey, I'm sorry, things like that make your children feel safe and being able to express themselves and express how they feel without being scared that they're going to be punished for it. Yeah, I don't know whether, Nelly, you've got anyone on your list. We're just gonna rush through them.
Yeah, we've talked about it, about reassuring children about the conflict, which
Yeah,
we have said, and we've said it so many times, that conflicts do occur, yes, but
yeah.
it's how we handle it. So when there's a conflict, reassure the children, because if the children know that the parents are having a conflict, but they are going to solve it, the child, it will not be something that the child will be worried about. But then when
Mm,
you say it, when you give that reassurance to the child, be ready to intentionally get involved in resolving the conflict in a calm way. Open
mhm.
and honest conversation is very important, because we
Yeah,
have talked about communication too. That communication, sometimes people have lots of information in their head,
yeah.
but their mouth struggle to express that information or to say that information. But the sad side is they expect the other person to know what's in their head. And that's how
Mm,
conflicts go unresolved, because if you are there having things in your head and you don't say it, the other person cannot read your mind. So it's for you to always take a step back and try to explain things. Sometimes we might have a lot in our head, but then when we
mm.
want to talk, because probably we are upset, the things that come out from our mouth is different from what is in our head, because we
Yeah,
might start one sentence but we have like so many ideas in our head, and we are just bringing different things, and at the end it might not even make sense. So
yeah,
communication is really important.
yeah.
And we've talked about emotional safety. which I'm
Yeah.
not going to talk about emotional safety, but basically what it is just create an environment, your home environment, where children can say things the way they are, and not
Mhm.
for them to try to make it so that the parent will be happy with the child when they are even saying the wrong thing. But think if the child knows that that is the thing the parent wants, honesty will not be there. So promote honesty, and parent need to be exhibiting that as well. When parent is wrong in what they do, they admit it. And
Yes.
consistency is key.
Yes.
Don't do
Yeah.
it today and then you skip tomorrow and say no, tomorrow is a holiday. Let's do the next. No, let it be consistent. Whether it's at home, it's in the community, it's in school, make sure that you are consistent with your parenting, because it shows emotional warmth, because
Yeah.
that way the children will really understand how their parents are. And when there is a conflict, if the parents are reassuring the children, that's not something that the children will be worried about, because they know that the parent will solve the problem and it will not impact the children much.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. And there's one here that it talks about prioritize connection than attention. And I'm sure, Nelly, you've talked so a lot about it. There are times where this is where you actually, Nelly actually shared one time she had one to one on one with her children. Because when we concentrate on connection, we are telling our children that, hey, I'm here for you, I hear you, I see you, if you need me, I'm here. So it is very important that we concentrate on that connection, try and connect. And again, children will learn connection by you learning to connect also with the other parent, whether the mom or the dad. Because when they see you guys connect together, when they see you guys talk, that is teaching them that connection as well, that hey, this is what, is healthy, it is important, it is good. So we need to teach, and we need to model them by example. Again, by example, meaning the way we talk, the way we manage our emotion. Again, we'll talk about that connection. The children are observant, right? If How do we deal with crisis? How do we deal when we are angry? How do we deal when we are frustrated? All of these things, we need to be able to identify these different emotions and how we manage these different emotions. It will teach our children as well how to manage their own emotions. And we talk about we need to stay alert to the warning signs. We don't need to parent in blindness. Sometimes, like parents, we've talked about this before, we are so busy that we miss a lot of signs. We don't pick up signs around what is happening with our kids. So we need to be very, very vigilant and alert to know if something is not right. And again, this is the benefit of connection, because if you connect with your child and you know your child very well, if there is something wrong, you will know. You pick it up immediately because of that connection, because you've had the opportunity to speak to your child, and you know when they're happy, you know when they're sad, and all of that. So that is very also important to build their emotional well-being. And then we've talked about teach them coping strategy very early. Again, we say every day is not going to be is not going to be nice. Not every day is going to be perfect. There are days where there will be tension. There are days where the children are going to feel sad themselves. They may go to school and things happen. Things may happen amongst their friends and all of that. But how can they cope with that without a challenge? The way you as parents cope at home, manage your own how do you the way you manage your own stress at home is also a way teaching them how to cope and manage their own stress. And if you deal with it healthily, then of course our children will learn to deal with theirs healthily as well. So I
I
think
think
yeah.
just let me add this, because in the Afro-Caribbean community, we know that talking about emotional well-being
Yeah.
is not something that it's not common in our community.
Yeah.
So it's for parents to learn, because this is the direction research is taking us to. where we've talked about being intentional.
Yeah.
So we need to be intentional. Let's increase our emotional vocabulary. Let us learn
Yes.
about it. And also, let us access culturally appropriate parenting support. Because,
Yeah.
like, we are in the Western world, the programs, the parenting programs that they have developed is mostly focused on the emotions because they talk of be conscious in what you are doing. We don't have that. So, sometimes the support is there. Parents from the Afro-Caribbean community, they might engage, but then they might not relate to it because they don't even understand. They don't have that vocabulary. And
Yeah.
sometimes there is a barrier because they know that we don't talk about emotions, so why should we go there? So is that lack of understanding, which is why
Hmm.
it is good to access culturally appropriate parenting support. So then when you spend your time to engage in those support, you know that is something that will benefit you and not just doing it for the tick boxing exercises from whoever referred you to there. Always be intentional. Let the support that you are getting be one that will actually help you and then to help your family as well. So then, if it's a matter of conflict resolution within the home, you will be intentional and you will set the example, be the role model for your children to also develop that same skill to solve their own conflict.
Absolutely. That is so true, Nelly. So yeah, I think that brings us to the end, and we have explored quite a lot. So we hope that if you were watching or you were following, we hope that you would have picked a few points there that can help you at home with your children. Like we say, conflict is inevitable. There'll always be disagreement, but the key is how do you agree? How do you solve that conflict without impacting the children? We need to prioritize the safety of our children first, because hey, it's not their fault that we came here, we had them, beautiful gift. We've got to make sure that at least we protect them and give them the best that we can. We've talked about strategies on how to solve that conflict privately and effectively and safely. We've talked about some myths which are wrong, and we've debunked those myths. And we've talked about how to create an emotionally stable environment, or stabilize your child's emotion and well-being. We've talked about all of that. So we hope that you learned something. And if you have any question, you can always pop it, put it in the comment section. We're always going to pick on it. And if there's a particular topic or something that you want us to talk about, please, by so doing, put it on the comment section. And if you want to be part of the panel, so we can have the discussion, always let us know, and we will bring you backstage so that we can have that conversation. So I don't know, Nelly, you can round up and close.
Yeah, that's it. You've already summarized it, so there's nothing more. So we just look forward to hearing from you, reading your comments, reading the messages, because we want you out here. We are here. We just want to learn because, hey, we gave birth to these children. Unfortunately, no child came with a manual on
Mm,
how to take care of them. So parenting is just a try and error.
yeah,
So we are learning. It's a journey that we are learning. We
yeah.
are just sharing from our personal and professional experiences. And we are here wanting to hear from you, wanting to hear your experience so that we can as well help ourselves and help other people. So come join us on this journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You take care and continue to being a wonderful parent and keep doing what you do.
Yeah,
Take care. We
yeah.
love you.
Bye
Yeah.
bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.